Hello guys, what's up? This is Scher talking. Welcome back to my channel. And in today's video, we'll be doing a review of the SaGa Soul Banner Part 2. Here we have Tiny Feather Avi, Count on Me Narcisse, and Hi, I'm Kurt Burgundy Curve. These styles were requested by the JP community, and that's what happens with SaGa Soul banners. They release characters based on feedback. And this banner here may offer some value for some of the new players in the game, but it doesn't offer too much value for veterans. But it depends on which characters you lack and what you want to cover with the styles. Let's start with Avi. Well, for status we have 100% STR, 100% agility, but only high bonuses for agility. His other bonuses goes for endurance, and he needs endurance as well. Another status that is important is intelligence with 77%. This character uses 4 status as a base. Well, let's understand that by looking on passives. The passive Vengeance pack is important. When being directly attacked, he will counter with Lever pack with a high chance. High chance in JP is 37%. It was before, no, it was 40%, but seems like they did more tests and it's 37. Okay, so he's being directly attacked and he will counter. So you probably have to use him on a Tiger Shark formation because that is the one that increases both his STR and also the chance of being targeted since he does not have taunt. And let's say that he'll get attacked. A lot of things will happen. He will counter with a 37% chance, and when this counter happens, he will also recover HP by medium. In fact, that should be around 500 or close to 600, and also recover 3 BP, allowing him to use other skills in other turns. But let's talk about the damage. What does he do when he counter? He counter with an A power AoE attack with blunt damage. A power is pretty massive for a counter, and let's compare him to some other options we have in the game. There is T260G Perfector style that will always counter with blunt, but the damage is pretty cheap, it's only E. There is other character that can always counter, that is Human Male. Human Male will always counter with his blunt attack, but single target. There is another counter as well, that is Human Female. Human Female will counter with 25% chance. Her counter is a single target weak attack, but she gets plus 3 BP when she counters. That's similar to him, but Avi even heals. So Avi in this regard is even better than Human Female, but we have to look to the whole kit to understand if he's better or not. But that's a lot of things stacking here, as you can see. A lot of things stacking. He counters, he heals, he recovers BP, but that's always aligned to 37% chance after being directly attacked. So yeah, what about his endurance then? 65. He's a risky counter, just like also Human Female, also similar to Halloween Cat that doesn't have high endurance but sometimes wants to counter. His second passive, AG Absorb, further expands on this idea of countering. AG Absorbs allows when he attacks to have a medium chance to reduce the target agility by medium. In fact, that is 15%, and increase his own agility, and that is 20%. Medium effect for increase is different from decrease. And Avi becomes eventually an evasion tank. That is if he can stack this AG Absorb, but AG Absorb has only 25% chance to trigger. So you have a chance after you counter it by chance. So in paper, he can become something very nice and evade a lot of attacks while just stacking VP to keep using better attacks that we'll be talking about. But in reality, you have to retreat and try again till he becomes dead. But if it works, it works. Then his last passive is Fired Up 5. Just to compare, I have conflicted ideas about Avi because we just got Forneus, and Forneus has some better kit. He gets stronger when he gets attacked, he buffs STR, he heals, and his power is way higher because his skill goes up to level 99, increasing the power. I managed to get like 50,000 damage with Forneus, well, with max potential, but still, after countering many times on the 8 Heroes challenge. Avi will never do that amount of damage, unless the enemy is extremely weak to blunt, and even then, his damage won't be that high. But if he can keep healing back and getting more BP to just do even more damage with actions and with counter, he can justify his design. The problem is just that he's just being released too close to Forneus to just get another specialist for counter. Now I want to show you the skills that we can use with him. The first one is called Beak. And this skill here is kind of cheap, only 1 BP, and it has both blunt and pierce, double element. With only 1 BP, you can use that for deep power. The second one is Petrify and Bake. This one is different. Instead, it has a power 29, way higher, and with 5 BP, this is pretty good, actually. And it has a large chance to petrify. Large chance to petrify, it's the highest chance possible, but it still depends on his intelligence. Since Avi is not a mage, he doesn't have that high intelligence. As you can see here, 77. There is another character that can also petrify that sometimes we even forget, and that one is Ray. And you can just inherit that into any of her SS styles. This style is pretty soon to be released, in my opinion, probably around Christmas. And this attack here is medium, but with a higher intelligence, it means that it will have a good chance anyway. The damage is even comparable with a way higher cost. Well, yeah, but if you petrify for 5 turns, that should be enough for you to regain BP and petrify again. That is, if you are able to petrify. War Tower is coming, and War Tower we will be able to use petrify in some stages, as people say. But how many times do we really need that? And if you have Ray, do you really need to have another petrify inflictor? I don't know. Depends on your gems and if you want to have another character that can do that. Well, Tiny Feather will just keep cycling between these two skills if you increase the BP cost of Natural Disaster, because it's 1-5-1-5. That means in 2 turns you are using all your BPs. Good enough because of the power even when you're not petrifying. But, you see, we only have 1 BP for damage, so for martial arts we have better stuff than this. But the third skill, Natural Disaster, is interesting because it's different. It's Slash and Lightning. Well, Slash coming from an agility slot if you are using Rainbow Rangers may be interesting. Although, if you are using Slash, sometimes you are just using other formations like Amazon Raid X, or if you're using Dragon Strike, it's not that needed. But Slash and Lightning is interesting since we still lack more options for AoE lightning damage. It has a chance to stun, but it's small, just don't care about this. And because it's an A29 power, it's very cheap. Usually A29 was like around 12, 13 BP, and now it's only 10. And because he just keeps getting more BP with his passive, we can even go back here to check. He will be able to just, let's return here and see Avi. He will just return to just keep using the skill. Imagine that you have a stage with many enemies and they use direct attacks, just like the 8 Stars challenge. He would just recover BP, be able to use this attack, and when he's not using this attack, he's countering with good damage. But do you really need this? Do you have Forneus? Have you summoned for Forneus? Do you have Urpina? Urpina is another character that can counter with good stuff. You actually don't need. That is the problem. And Forneus banner was just around the corner. Was here even some past days ago. So if you summon it, you will not have that much value out of Tiny Feather. And even better if you have another character that can inflict Petrify. It's easier to skip. Another comparison is that Natural Disaster, while being good, will be easily replaced by another character. And the competition is Dora. Dora is a dragon that will be released with Joe's second style. And it's, again, a martial arts character that can attack with a very powerful nuke with the third skill here. As you can see, it's also an AoE specialist. When you use this attack called Lightning Bomb Hammer, you do a lot of damage. It's S power, 40 modifier. Not only that, but it's heat and lightning, a better combination than just slash and lightning. It also has better passives. The status are kind of similar, but it also has an AoE as a follow-up, the first skill here. It's even good. So, if you want to replace Tiny Feather, it's easy if you have Petrify and if you are waiting for Joe to be released with Dora. But it's not that it's bad, it's just that you can replace Tiny Feather utility. Okay, so this was Tiny Feather. It's time to talk about someone else, and that would be Kurt. Let's talk about Kurt. Kurt is terrible, let me tell you that. I really don't understand this design, and I will have to try to understand why I will talk about him. Well, Kurt has a lot of status that he tries to use, and again, trying to be too much on the same time sometimes is a curse. He has 82% for an STR, and 82% also for endurance, with bonus on the same values for both. And this is actually strange, because Kurt tries to be a damage dealer, but a very bad one, while also offering support and reducing damage, but only to himself. So he does not taunt as well. What do you want to do with this guy? Well, his dexterity is on 72, that is okay because of the current content having around that as well. His agility is terrible with 61%, but okay, tanks are slow. His will is 78, not that high. He does have a high glove so that he can heal better, but that's about Kurt. Nothing here stands out. For his passive, the first one is Fortified Wall. When he's attacking, he has a chance to negate damage completely. That's the same thing we saw before with Beauty and Nassau's 25% chance to negate damage when being attacked. This is actually good, but it's not something reliable for a tank. It's usually better on characters that are more about offensive, and sometimes they can just survive. Then the second one is called Delayed Heal Link. We saw Heal Link before with characters like Orleave, like also the summer version of Vampire Lady, and it's essentially 25% chance to heal yourself and a random ally, but his version is delayed, so it's only on the end of turn. But it should heal for around 500 or something. And the last one is called Unite. When all allies are surviving, meaning that everyone's still alive, damage will increase by 15%. This is his only damage passive. And damage will be reduced, also by only 10%. Is this good enough? The guy is only decreasing damage by 10%. I don't understand Kurt. He looks like a Platinum style. Sometimes Platinum styles will be way better than him. Just look on Grey. Just look on Barbara. Many styles that have way more utility than this guy that really doesn't have a clear sense of design. The first skill of him is a cheap one that can be reduced to 0. And it's both slash and blunt, but he barely does damage, so what are you aiming for here? It's more chance to stun. His intelligence is terrible, so you're not stunning anyway, so this is useless. Well, it's just a little more damage than a normal attack. And Purify is a skill that is probably why he's just so mixed. Purify is essentially similar to Princess White Rose heal spell that also cleanses. Here it cleanses as well, but has a lower cost. It's 4 BP instead of 5. The healing is a little inferior, but not by that much. As you can see here, he's healing for around 1.5 thousand GP with the best weapon. But he does need a Water Sword. As you can see, this is considered a spell. So, Purify on a character that don't do damage or don't bring anything else to the table, you are just relying on the passive healing and healing with his active skill when you really need, sometimes when you need to revive someone. But his passive healing is not reliable anyway. The last skill is Multi-Way Plus. This is an upgraded version of the original Multi-Way that was a skill with higher BP cost. This time it's less, only 9. And that means that he can use this every 3 turns if he's not healing. So you can stack BP in the start of a fight and sometimes use this attack or sometimes use Purify. But he does not have the STR. He does not have the passive. The damage will be terrible. And that's why I don't think this guy has a clear design. He tries to do damage, his attack here doesn't have anything to offer. If it had at least a buff or a debuff or something else, it would be more interesting. You're just trying to nuke with a no-nuker attacker. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how he works. So why would you even use this guy instead of a healer, like Princess White Rose that can also debuff? Why would you use him as a nuker if he barely nukes? Why would you use him as a tank if he needs a Tiger Shark formation or northern ones that increase his chance to be attacked and he cannot protect the squad if you have Global X, Fighter and Press? Well, this guy is really bad in my books. And the last one is Narcisse, and Narcisse may be the most interesting of them all, because he just tries to pack a lot of utility in the same style. Sadly, there's only this version of Narcisse in JP, but even with just this kit, it's just like Minerva. You don't need more than that. Narcisse offers bow skills and also spells that come from the earth element. So he's a hybrid, but not just by the type of damage, but also by design. He has 100% dexterity with plus 17, meaning that he has the status of a nuker. His agility is on 88% with plus 11, meaning that he has very high agility. He will attack before, and when you want him to attack before, and he can also enter evasion strategies easily. But he works better with Nal's Daughter, Leon, and the second Matriarch, since the first one does not buff dexterity. And he has 92% intelligence. And that is good, because when you see some hybrid characters like Wagner, sometimes you see that they don't have both status on nuke levels. His intelligence is even lower than his dexterity, but it's still good enough for what he wants to do. So in Narcisse's case, we'll be looking on his skills before looking on the passives to fully understand him. We have 2 amplify skills. The first one is Rapid Volley Plus. It does have this translation name, I don't know why. And it's a cheap attack, 4 BP coast, then hits for deep power. Nothing special, but at least you can fire this up many times. We have some cards that can do similar with lower coast as well, or double elements. Then we have Delta Petra Plus. This skill here is good because it can petrify, but in the past it had a very terrible damage. It was only D. Now it's upgraded to B power 21 modifier. It's good enough, and it brings a small chance to petrify. Because Narcisse actually does have good intelligence, remember 90%, he can petrify tyrants easily. And there is some competition, because now Delta Petra Plus can be upgraded to the first original version of Hybrid Thomas, the one that is reading a book, and his last style also can inherit that Delta Petra, has a passive that can trigger it even further, with 2 chances to petrify. And for Delta Petra users, that Thomas is better than Narcisse. But Narcisse tries to inflict something else, I'll be explaining later. So, because it petrifies for 5 turns, you can just stack BP and try to petrify again. That is, if you can petrify. This is useful in War Tower, but it's just in War Tower, since normal challenges, bosses will never be able to be petrified. Okay, but at least you can use this 2 times in a 3-turn cycle as well, for farming and for damage. There is a character that can do something similar, and that is Taria. She has a Arita Petra attack, and this attack is actually 8 PP as well, but look on the damage. But she has 2 passives related to intelligence buff, one that she always gets and the other one that she has a chance to get. So her intelligence is always higher than Narcisse, and she has a higher chance to petrify. So if you have this Taria, you are pretty okay with petrify chances. And if you have the other Thomas, you have the same damage output with the even higher chances. So, well, this at least is important to compare. If you are a new player and you are still having problem claiming a story mode, or maybe Spiral Tower or some other weekly content, this will help you, just not with boss fights. It also helps in War Tower when we get that, if you don't have any other Petrify Inflictor. And then we have the last skill, Instantaneous Twin Bow. This attack here is similar to UDX Claudia. UDX Claudia has a skill, Reverie 3-shot. She deals 3 shots of damage, and they are very nice. They are probably the highest turn 1 damage when we get new bows, double S bows that is. And it's similar because instead of using 3 shots, Narcisse uses only 2, but with a lower cost, only 8 PP compared to 10. Each shot has a bigger damage than Claudia, but because he only has 1 damage passive, it's very similar in the end. So we are switching between 3 shots for 10 PP to 2 shots with 8 PP. There is one good thing about this, it's fast. I don't know why it's fast, but it is, because he's already with a very high agility. But depending on how you plan ahead, you can just attack on turn 1, then you use another fast attack on turn 2, in the second wave, and then on wave 3, you will know that he will go first as well. It does open some combination, but still very hard to program because it's single target. We usually want fast attacks for AoE because it's kinda easier for farming. But I know that some people will get some utility out of this. So, the first skill is Pierce. The second one is Blunt. Delta Petra is blunt damage, comes from Earth element. Earth is always blunt. And the third one is Pierce again. He has a lot of utility and versatility with damage. And Instantaneous Twin Bow can be used twice in a 3-turn cycle. It does offer some volley for some people, still lacking Pierce. And remember that he always gets more dexterity when he uses any of the skills, even his normal attack. Now it's time to come back to this page and look on his passives. The first one is Attack Rhythm. This passive here, gives him dexterity every time that he attacks, what I just said. The buff is 20%. Some characters have only 15, he has 20. So every skill that he uses, he gets a dexterity buff. The second one is Chasing Break. When he lands either a normal attack, Rapid Volley, or Delta Petra, remember that AoE attacks of him, so either normal attack or 4 BP Rapid Volley Plus or 8 BP Delta Petra Plus, he has a 37% chance of chasing with a skill called ID Break. ID Break is a very rare skill here. We had this with Summer Liz in the past, a lot of time ago, It deals C power not high, especially because he will only use that on rank 1. And it inflicts confusion with medium chance. Because he has 90% with intelligence, that is definitely a good chance. But because you only have 37% chance to follow with ID break, it's not that reliable. But let's say that you inflict on the first turn and it lands for 4. You probably have a good chance to inflict again before the enemy recovers for confusion. The damage was not important since it's more about the confusion rate, but it can increase his damage capabilities when using his other skills. But there is a problem. Remember when I said that there's a problem with Narcisse on the start? Although he's capable of doing multi stuff, it's that it's an AoE attack that becomes a single target attack, but with a chance. So for farming, you should not rely on this, and for boss fights, it's still RNG. This kind of reminds me a little also of Wagner's. Wagner's has a 50% chance of chasing with an AoE, but he uses an AoE and chase with an AoE. He can also chase with a single target attack, but he has 2 on the same power, so he has a chance to decide if he wanna do single target, then chase, or do AoE and chase. Makes much more sense for Wagner's. But Narcisse is only aiming for one enemy. And sometimes this just does not matter. So, because it's a chance, it's not that good. And if you have Summer Liz, she still has ID break, inherit that skill, and if you need to inflict confusion in some content in the future, you have that. So Narcisse brings also fired up 5 with his last passive, meaning that his only damage passive is 20% increase. But because he just keeps stacking dexterity, let's try to understand what he can do. In boss fights, he can simply keep using instantaneous twin bow, so the damage keeps getting stronger, and well, he would just revert to normal attack, and when he does normal attack, he can just attack again with IG break. And something interesting is that IG break will allow him to trigger attack rhythm as well. So it's essentially a 37% chance to buff himself 2 times, allowing him to do more damage. And if you are facing multiple enemies, you can also choose to use instead Rapid Volley Plus. So there is some utility on this guy, but he's kind of specific for every single hole. If you want Delta Petra, you have a good guy if you don't have other ones. If you want constant damage for long fights and AoE, he has. And if you want good damage for long fights, for single target, he also has. He is not the best in any of these roles, but he has a large kit that may offer for people that lack specialists. That's essentially Narcisse for you. One thing is also important to say. Is Narcisse stronger than some of the other peer snookers we have? Well, if you compare him to Global X Mikhail or Global X Miranda, no, he cannot beat that. He can beat Claudia in long run fights. He can beat even Dark in long run fights, but that is if you have many turns to keep buffing himself. But even J-Mew, UDX J-Mew can beat him if he's attacking with targets. So yeah, he's not a best on nuke, he just has good damage. Now let's return to the banner image. What do you think about the styles? Well, Avi is a character that does not shine so much because of Forneus. In my opinion, for counter, Forneus just dominates in Urpina as well. Avi does not beat them. He has a lot of RNG, even more than them. For damage, he has competition with someone that's coming pretty soon. Well, Kurt, in my opinion, is pretty useless. I would never use this guy if I had any other tank. Maybe new players don't have any other option and we use Kurt. And then Narcisse offers a lot of value for a lot of different stuff, and while not being a direct specialist in any of them. But at least he can do damage, he can do status, he can just do AoE, he can do single target. But is it worth summoning for? Well, if you have Forneus, Forneus will do more damage than Avi, even in enemies that are weak to blunt. And if you have Urpina, Urpina is still enough for countering. If you have everything that Narcisse offers, it's also easy to skip him. And you don't need Kurt, trust me. Wait for new banners with cards that can offer more and fulfill different roles that you still lack. That's my opinion. What's yours? Please say here in the comment, are you planning to summon? I hope to see you soon. I'll be doing a live stream. If you want to support the channel, there are links here in the description of the video. I hope to see you all soon in the next one. Bye.